What's poppin', guys? Back again with another video. It's your boy, Multiple Voice Guy. Hey guys, welcome to the last and final part of me ranking the big three horror franchises: Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. We are in the top 10 right now. I'm sorry if part 2 felt a little forced and rushed, but I still hope you enjoyed it. But basically, yeah, we are now in the top 10, so how about we waste no time and basically get it started with number 10. And coming up in number 10 for me is gonna be the original Friday the 13th. Cause screw you, Brian Lomax, screw you, Cody Leach. The original Friday the 13th is great. Yes, I get it. It's low budget, it's kind of basically, and of course, yes, even the director admitted himself that the only real reason why they created this film was to cash in on the success of Halloween. And of course, you realize that I'm not holding up my hockey mask because, well, if you guys don't know, Jason isn't the killer in this movie. It's actually his mother, Pamela Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer, which may she rest in peace. They do like a whodidit aspect, except the only time we see Pamela Voorhees is when she's revealed to be the killer. And it's just, I think it's good, honestly. The design for, yeah, Betsy, yeah, and of course the kills are great. My favorite would have to be Kevin Bacon's character who gets an arrow to the throat. Like, basically, yeah, they basically use the Halloween formula, but of course, do something different so they wouldn't get sued. Yeah, like, basically one night, Victor Miller, called up, Sean Cunningham, and was like, oh, hey, Halloween's making a lot of success, so let's go rip it off. Yeah, but little did they know that this would end up turning into a gigantic franchise. And of course, it is funny. I do have to agree with Cody Leach on one thing, that Friday the 13th is the one horror movie franchise I can think of where people rarely say the first one's their favorite. But this franchise wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the original Friday the 13th. I love it. It's pretty good. And I'd kick myself if I didn't watch it at least once every Halloween. Well, at least I tried to anyway. But so yeah, that's basically the original Friday the 13th. Yeah. Alright, and coming up in number 9, we have Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. Yeah, you know, and this is the film where Jason finally gets his iconic hockey mask. And every time I see Jason walk out with that thing on, I want this music to play. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Because this is by far the most iconic movie out of the franchise, because it's the movie where Jason gets his hockey mask. Richard Berger did do a pretty good job as Jason Voorhees, which may he rest in peace. I don't get what you people have against Friday the 13th Part 3. Yes, it is technically just the same two movies, but in 3D. And the 3D is pretty bad compared to today. But basically, this film was actually quite decent. I actually do have a little bit of a fun time with it. I do love the connection that Jason does have with the final girl, Chris. But it's still pretty good. I like it. I think it was a good movie. You know, the kills are great. And basically, I just love it. And basically, I think Friday the 13th Part 3 is really good, and that's why it's in my number 9. Alright. Yep. Alright. And coming up in number 8, we have Friday the 13th Part 2. Yeah, the film where Jason gets to play. I say it's an absolute classic, and of course, the reason why I'm not holding the hockey mask for this one is because since this is only the second movie, Jason doesn't have his iconic hockey mask yet. He instead wears like a sack around his head with a one eye hole cut out. Most people call him Sackhead Jason. And of course, I do think Steve Dash does do a passable job as Jason Voorhees. For the first time, we actually see Jason Voorhees killing people. The kills are upgraded. The characters are more memorable, and I'm just gonna say it. I think Ginny is a way better final girl than Alice. I mean, like, Alice was an okay final girl, but I kind of think, she gets beaten by Ginny in Part 2. It's basically just the first film, but probably, like, improved, basically. yeah, basically Cody Leach does say this is kind of like an approved version of the first film, and I actually have to agree with him on that. Yeah, this is basically an improved version of the first film, but I still have a decent time with it. And of course, yeah, I just, I like it. It was pretty good. Oh yeah, the fact that there was a, you know what, actually, never mind. I'm not going to get into that because my channel might get demonetized. So, yeah. Alright, now I know what you're thinking. Okay, Austin, so far, or multiple voice guy, you can call me by my real name, Austin, but I really would prefer it if you just called me multiple voice guy. I know you're probably thinking, okay, multiple voice guy, so far, the only thing you've been talking about in this video is Jason, or are you going to mention like a Halloween or a Nightmare on Elm Street movie? And my answer is now. Basically, coming up in number 7, we have, we have Halloween 2018. Now, if you've seen my Halloween ranking, you know how much I love this film. But of course, my main gripe with it, that since it's a new timeline, it takes place 40 years after the 78 film, after the first film from 1978, where Michael Myers and Laurie Strode are no longer related. You know, yeah, it's kind of sad, you know, because, like, basically, like, in my personal opinion, I was bummed because, you know, like, Michael Myers and Laurie Strode being related is such a big part of their history. And, of course, from John Carpenter's point of view, I do understand why he got rid of it. But, no. No, in my opinion, if you ignore that, basically, in my opinion, if you ignore that fact, Halloween 2018 is good. You know, the kills are good, the design is good. James Jude Courtney is by far one of my favorite Michael Myers, right in between Nick Castle and George P. Wilbur. But basically, the kills are great, the blood is great, the effects are just absolute god tier, and I just have a lot of fun with this. And of course, the ending where they trap Michael in the house and set it on fire, which led to that really awesome moment in Kills, which basically, I was almost scared that I was going to like this movie more than the original, but some things held it back for me. First up, the fact that there are tense situations that get cut off with like a little joke. Like probably the most prime example of when the babysitter's is getting killed, and the little kid's like, "Oh, like, it was funny, but yeah, it cut away the tension of the mood. And of course, there's Dr. Citain, who is basically, at the beginning, people thought he was going to be like a Dr. Loomis replacement because unfortunately Donald Pleasence couldn't come back because, you know, he's dead, which may he rest in peace. But then there comes that plot twist that came out of nowhere where he just basically injures Sheriff Hawkins. Which I'm just like, which that just came out of nowhere and just didn't work. And also him coming out wearing the mask, that just looked stupid, honestly. But of course, if you ignore those things, Halloween 2018 is a good film, and I like it. And that is why it's in my number 7. Alright, coming up in number 6. Yeah, coming up in number 6, we have Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Now, this film is good. I love George P. Wilbur as Michael Myers, and of course we have a new timeline. And of course we have probably the first original timeline outside of the anthology timeline, where in this timeline, Laurie Strode died in a car crash before giving birth to Jamie Lloyd, her sister, no, not her sister, what am I saying? Her daughter, played by Danielle Harris. And of course, I love it, you know, I do like, and of course, that gas explosion didn't kill Michael, but it did put him in a coma for a while, which I don't know how Dr. Loomis survived the gas explosion. If anything, you would think it would be reversed with Dr. Loomis being in the coma and Michael Myers still being alive, but whatever. The guy who, and of course, I do have to mention something that, that Lee pointed out from Drum Dums, which huge shout out to him, that the guy who plays the bandaged up Michael is the same guy who played Roy Burns in Friday the 13th Part 5. Pretty interesting, I would say. I think George P. Wilbur is by far the best Michael Myers. in my opinion, right next to James Q. Courtney. I do like Nick. I'm butchering. I'm switching actors. I think George P. Wilbur does do a good job as Michael Myers. Probably my only complaint about this movie is the mask and the shoulder blades they give him. But other than that, this film is good. You know, the kills are good. The story is good. I love Rachel, who is by far my favorite final girl. Some could even argue that she's better than Laurie, but no, I'm sorry, you're not being Laurie. But Rachel is a pretty good contender though. And unfortunately, she had to get killed off in the first and second of 5. It would be replaced with Tina. But other than that, I love this. Dr. Loomis is back, and basically, the town actually believes Loomis this time. You know, they remember what Michael did 10 years ago. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna get Michael tonight. And of course, they kind of did. And of course, I love the plot twist ending where the evil passed on to Jamie, and the fact that she was gonna be the next killer. Until 5 comes and just says that. But basically, pretty good movie with only one flaw. Well, 2 if you count the padding they gave him as a separate flaw. But other than that, this film was good, actually. I like it, honestly. Yeah, I like Halloween 4. It's by far one of my favorite sequels in the Halloween series, and I just love it. I loved it as a kid, and I love it now. So, yeah. Okay. Alright, and coming up in number 5, we have the original. Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh yes, finally, a Nightmare on Elm Street film in this video ranking. Basically, I love this movie. It's an absolute classic, created by a brilliant man by the name of Wes Craven, which may he rest in peace. I love this movie. I think it was good. Basically, first up, the kills are great, and of course, the inspiration for this movie that Wes Craven came up with. Basically, there was actually this real story about this boy who was having horrible nightmares, and he just did not want to go to sleep. Like, he basically refused to go to sleep. Like, he took pills. He did everything to avoid going to sleep. And eventually, he died. And so Wes Craven was like, okay, what if we took that and made that into a horror movie? And it just absolutely works. And of course, Wes Craven, you know, he wanted his killer to be different from Michael, different from Jason. So he decided to have his killer be the one thing we fear most, our nightmares. And thus, Freddy Krueger was born. And, you know, this film is just great. You know, I love Heather Langenkamp as Nancy. She's by far one of my favorite final girls, right? She is by far my favorite final girl. I think it's really good. I love Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. And, of course, the kills are great. You know, and of course, even the most simple effect of him coming out of the wall that they used with some cheap spandex that they bought for $2. Yeah, and it was fascinating that they were even able to do that back in 1984. And this film is just an absolute classic, and it is definitely a good film to watch around Halloween time. And I basically love it. This film, and of course, the origin of Freddy, you know, that they revealed that he was a filthy child murderer who killed about 20 kids in the neighborhood of Springwood, and then that he was arrested, but a faulty arrest warrant said he was, like, going to technicality. And then the parents of Springwood decided, you know what? We're going to burn Freddy alive in his boiler room. Because, you know, if the cops aren't going to deal with him, then us, the people, will. And this film is just great, and I love it. This film is fantastic. I love it. May I say more? Just absolute classic. Absolute classic. Alright, coming up in number 4, we have Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which really isn't the final chapter, it's just part 4. That's right, they faked us out twice. First up, this is probably by far the most fun out of the franchise, but the other one is going to be really more fun. First up, I love Ted White as Jason Voorhees. He is by far one of my favorite Jasons. He's definitely in my top 5. I love Corey Feldman in this film, played by I love Tommy Jarvis in this film, played by Corey Feldman. The kills are great, and of course I love Crispin Glover's character. He was fun to watch live, and he was fun to watch die. This is a really good Friday the 13th film, and basically a really good slasher film. And yeah, I basically agree with Cody Leach on this one. This film is great. I love it. Yeah, I love Ted White's take on Jason Voorhees. And of course the ending where Tommy looks into the camera, letting everybody know he'll have a successful career in life. And basically this is a huge fan favorite, and for a good reason. And that is why it's in my number 4. That's why it's in my number 4. Alright, and coming up in number 3. We have A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. This is an absolute good film. I love it. This is my number 1 favorite out of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, right next to the original. I love Patricia Arquette as Kristen in this movie. And of course, Nancy Thompson's back, here to train this new generation of Elm Street kids. And it's just great. Basically, the kills are great in this film. My favorite would have to be where he hangs the dude by his veins like a puppet and cuts the strings and he falls to his death. Absolutely fantastic film. And of course, the one-liners. Welcome to prime time. Freddy, just the king of one-liners. Him and Chucky, honestly. Basically, and of course, this film is just the most fun, honestly. And basically, I just love it. And of course, and basically and of course, they actually had the guts to kill Nancy Thompson. Well, at least in the Nightmare on Elm Street universe. But basically, I still love it. And of course, it's fantastic. And of course, we learn more about Freddy's origin, like how he was brought in this world. But of course, I'm not gonna get into that because I'm afraid my channel might get demonetized. But maybe some other popular YouTubers can explain it. But other than that, this film is great. The kills are good. The character's fun. The character's likable. Freddy Krueger is by far his best in this film. He has both a blend of both dark and comedic. And I love it. This film is just the most fun. And that is why it's in my number 3. Alright, coming up in number 2, we have Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. By far the best and the most fun out of the Friday the 13th series. First up, I am with Cody Leach on this one, that I'm not the biggest fan of Jason's Home Depot look. But other than that, it's not bad. I love CJ Graham as Jason Voorhees. And of course, this is the start of Angry Revenge, Undead Revenant Jason, basically. Where it doesn't matter what you do to him, he just won't die. Tommy Jarvis, this time played by Tom Matthews, who does a way better job than John Shepard in 5. Basically, this is just awesome. The characters are likable and comedic, and just Friday the 13th Part 6 is just by far the best, and is a other huge fan favorite in the films, and basically my favorite out of the franchise. And of course, it's just great. And of course, I love how Jason's brought back to life, where lightning hits his corpse, and he basically brought back to life. They give him like the Frankenstein feel, and basically the kills, great in this film. I can't disregard the kills. And basically, this film is good, and that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Friday the 13th, Part 6, number 2. But of course, was there any question that it would be beaten by number 1? And of course, number 1, we should have all saw this coming, honestly. Number 1 is John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween. This film is a classic, and of course I love it. And of course, it's the movie that opened up the door for, that kicked open the door for horror. Like, Halloween kicked open the door and Friday the 13th just ripped that door off the hinges. A quote by Cody Leach. Yeah. And of course, I love this film. Basically, and of course, Nick Castle, we cannot disregard Nick Castle's performance as Michael Myers. And of course, the beginning, where we see the POV shot of a young girl getting stabbed to death, and then it's revealed in the next shot that a 6-year-old kid did that. Like, Jesus. And of course, I do love Dr. Loomis in this movie, played by Donald Pleasence, which may he rest in peace. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. The devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and another 7 tried to keep him locked up because I realized what was living behind that young boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. Just great. And of course, the kills. And of course, Jamie Lee Curtis. And of course, Laurie Strode, played by a very young Jamie Lee Curtis. And of course, the mask, where they basically use a William Shatner mask. They cut the eye holes bigger, spray painted it white, and darkened the hair. And that was, boom, that was the Shapes mask. Nick Castle is by far the best Michael Myers, because, he was the original, he was the OG, and basically, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm mixing my movies up today. The original Halloween, fantastic film, and I love it. And boom, finally, I'm finally done ranking all 33 of these films. So, guys, what'd you think? So, do you agree with my list? Or would you have this in a different order? But basically, let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.